Welcome to this lesson on author stance. Every time you read a text, someone wrote it, and that person has a perspective. Sometimes the perspective is obvious. Other times it is hidden beneath careful word choices. Your job as a reader is to figure out where the author stands. Are they for or against something? Are they neutral? Are they pretending to be neutral but actually leaning one way? In this lesson, we will learn how to identify author stance by looking at the language choices writers make. Here is what we will cover. First, what author stance actually means and why it matters as a reading skill. Then, the difference between objective language and subjective language. After that, we will look at stance markers, which are specific words and phrases that reveal how a writer feels about their topic. Finally, we will practice evaluating whether a text is balanced or biased. The key idea to keep in mind throughout this lesson is that stance is not just about what a writer says. It is about how they say it. The word choices are where stance lives. The first step in identifying stance is understanding the difference between objective and subjective language. Objective language presents facts without personal opinion. The report found a 12% increase. That is neutral. It does not tell you whether the writer thinks that is good or bad. Subjective language adds opinion, judgment, or emotion. The impressive report found a 12% increase. Now the writer is telling you they think the report was impressive. Notice the difference between 300 residents attended and only 300 residents bothered to attend. Same fact, completely different stance. The word only suggests it was too few, and bothered implies people were lazy. Now let us look at specific words that reveal stance. I call these stance markers. Positive stance markers include words like wisely, importantly, fortunately, crucial, essential, and rightly. These tell you the author supports or values something. Negative stance markers include unfortunately, merely, questionable, so-called, misguided, and failed to. These tell you the author disapproves or is critical. There are also hedging words like perhaps, arguably, and to some extent. These suggest the author is cautious or uncertain. And boosting words like undoubtedly, without question, and obviously, which show strong conviction. Both hedging and boosting reveal stance, just in different ways. Let us look at a real example. This passage is about social media. The author says it has fundamentally changed how we communicate, and not necessarily for the better. Platforms claim to connect people, but face-to-face interaction has declined sharply. What is the stance? It is negative towards social media. The word fundamentally is a boosting word that emphasizes the scale of change. Not necessarily for the better is a direct negative evaluation. The word claim is important because it implies doubt. The author is suggesting that what platforms say is not quite true, and declined sharply frames the consequence negatively. Every highlighted word is a deliberate choice that reveals the author's position. Now, let us compare two versions of the same story. Version A says the proposed changes have received mixed responses and presents both sides equally. Version B says the ill-conceived changes have predictably drawn criticism. See the difference? Ill-conceived is a negative judgment from the start. Predictably is dismissive, suggesting the criticism was inevitable. Then notice the numbers. Version B says a handful of supporters versus many residents. Handful minimizes the support. Many amplifies the opposition, and the word rightly endorses the opposition's view. The author is telling you which side is correct. Same topic, same basic facts, but the stance is completely different because of the word choices. Sometimes stance is hidden, and you need to look carefully. This passage seems factual at first glance, but look at the word choices. The government insists. Why insists and not says or states? Insists implies the government is being defensive, pushing back against doubt. Early data suggests the picture is more complicated. Suggests is hedging, but complicated undermines the government's simple narrative. And then, more than officials would like to admit. Admit implies the government is hiding something or reluctant to acknowledge the truth. These are reporting verbs, and they carry enormous stance. Says is neutral. Insists is defensive. Admits suggests reluctance. Claims implies doubt. Always pay attention to the verb used to describe what someone said. Now it is your turn. Pause and work through these three. Question 1. The Council has wisely decided to invest in renewable energy, a crucial step. The stance is positive. Wisely approves of the decision. Crucial boosts the importance. The author clearly supports this investment. Question 2. Critics have dismissed the proposal as merely a publicity exercise, though supporters maintain it will deliver. This is slightly negative. Dismissed and merely carry negative weight. And maintain is a weaker verb than argue or demonstrate, so the supporters are given less authority. The author leans towards the critics. Question 3. The research team reported that rainfall decreased by 8%. This is neutral. Reported is an objective reporting verb. There are no stance markers at all. The author is simply presenting information. Let us recap the key ideas. Author stance is the position a writer takes, and it is revealed through word choice, not just content. Objective language presents facts without evaluation. Subjective language includes opinion and judgment. Look for stance markers. Positive ones, like clearly, and crucial negative ones, like merely and so-called hedging words, like perhaps and arguably, and boosting words like undoubtedly and obviously. Pay special attention to reporting verbs. Says is neutral, insists is defensive, admits implies reluctance, and claims implies doubt. Always compare whether a text presents both sides equally or favors one side through word choice. The question to always ask yourself is, what does this word choice tell me about where the author stands?